Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What's going on, guys? What's happening? It is Deibs, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to another edition of Party on Broad. Basketball is back. Basketball is back. Basketball is back. Joining us today is my man, Rob. Follow him on Twitter at Philly_Madness. Check out the Madness podcast anywhere you find your podcasts or at the Painted Lines YouTube channel. What's going on, Rob?
Listen, I want to make it very clear that I am wearing a Flyers hat and a Sixers shirt to support two organizations that got their shit together, unlike Major League Baseball, and is coming back for us while they fight over billions of dollars right now. Just want to make that very clear before we start today.
God bless basketball, man. Also joining us today is my man, Austin. Check out him on Twitter at KrellTPL. He does the Feed to Embiid podcast. Check that out at the Feed to Embiid on Twitter. What's going on, man?
It's hilarious that they're going to be fighting about whose bats are longer in the middle of July, and we're getting ready to watch NBA regular season again. It's going to be a blast. I turned 24 in July, so I'll be sitting on the back deck on Saturdays with a couple of libations, couple of adult beverages, and enjoying some playoff basketball. It's going to be wonderful.
By comparing bats, I think that's a metaphor. I'm taking that as all right.
Listen, you got Louisville Slugger. I like this. You like that. It's a whole. You like Mizuno, whatever you like. But all I know is Louisville Slugger gets the job done. I'm just saying.
All right. Next up, we have the host of the Killing Me Smalls podcast. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you do. You can find the Killing Me Smalls podcast anywhere you find your podcast, as well as here at the Painted Lines YouTube channel. Check out my man on Twitter. He is at Real Mike Small. What's going on, Mike?
What's up, my man? So I told Mike Trout I would only do this podcast for $5 million. So he said it was okay. And I just want to let Rob know that I'm rocking my Hurts for Heisman shirt.
Woo!
My guy, Jalen Hurts, Roll Tide. Let's do it.
Rob has been consulting a small local, I guess, doctor, you might say, since that draft. Yeah. He's been trying to unravel some deep shit there.
I've been trying to mellow out hardcore since that draft took place.
Therapist is not getting paid enough.
No.
Oh, man. So, all right. So we are talking about the return of the Jedi. Wait, wrong podcast. We're talking about the return of the NBA. We're talking Sixers expectations, the top storylines, and we're going to break down the Sixers schedule moving forward. All right, so here's the NBA's plan to return. The plan includes 13 Western Conference teams, 9 Eastern Conference teams. There will be 8 regular season games, a possible play-in tournament for the 8th seed, and playoffs. The top 16 teams in the Eastern and Western Conference will be joined by teams currently within 6 games of the 8th place, and in 2 conferences, the New Orleans Pelicans, Portland, San Antonio, Sacramento, Phoenix, and Washington. The play-in tournament will include the number 8 and number 9 teams. Teams will begin training at team sites in July, looking at July 31st to start the regular season, continue the regular season. And before we get started on our top reactions to this new format, just want to pour one out for my man, Vince Carter. Atlanta Hawks are gone, and Vince Carter is hands down one of my favorite players of all time. Thank you, Vince. Rob, what was your reaction to this new format, dude?
You know, you had heard these things for the last couple of weeks, what was going to happen, and a lot of this stuff was sprinkling out, and it sounded like a deal was going to get done. It's exciting. It's exciting. I think I really love the idea of the 8 regular season games from seeding purposes, not only for the lower teams, but I look at the Sixers. So these 8 games are going to depend on home court of the first round for them, even though there's not a higher seed, possibly a better matchup. The dynamics of this thing are crazy. Right? The dynamics at this point are crazy. It's Orlando, which I think the biggest storyline should be that the Philadelphia 76ers have to go to the worst city that they play in Orlando, and play the whole season. So I'm a little concerned about that. But I'm excited, man. I can't wait to get legitimate, real sports so I could stop betting on Russian table tennis.
No more Korean baseball.
Langy from downtown. I love it. That was a nice shot. I like that.
I'm tired of the table tennis bets, guys. I'm tired of it.
Austin, what was your reaction to the NBA's return, man?
I think it's been a long time coming. I think it's mostly, for a lot of it, obviously they want to get the revenue for TV viewership, and they want to come back and actually crown a champion. I think a lot of it has to do with the timing of it, especially. It has to do with they recognize that baseball has got its head up its ass, and they're trying to capitalize on potentially being the only sports league back on TV during the summer months, and that's a great market capitalization opportunity for them. But I think the plan itself is a pretty good plan. I mean, the standings are going to be basically the same how it works. The playoff seeding is the same. I mean, I think a 13-team format in the West is a clear thing to just try to get Zion in there, squeeze those extra bits of revenue out. But I think overall, it's a good plan to return.
How about you, Mike?
Well, first of all, since it's in Orlando, and when I think Orlando, I think Markelle Fultz. And I shout out to Chris Archer for having thoracic outlet syndrome. It actually is a thing, I suppose. So there you go. That's the first I've heard of that in a long time. But Austin's right. I mean, really, when you look at this playoff, it's an excuse to do two things: to get Damian Lillard and Zion Williamson some more games so they can get some TV, and to get those last 7 games in that all the teams would make their money from the local TV contracts. So it's a financially, beneficial situation for the teams, and for the players. They're going to make their money, and they'll get all their money back from the playoffs, etc. And be interesting to see how the Sixers do with those last 8 games. I mean, they're against cupcake teams, but those are the teams they struggle against. Or they can beat the Lakers and the Clippers and the Bucks, but they struggle against the Magic and teams like that. So we'll see what happens.
It's going to be an airtight 4-4. We'll have no idea what to think. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the under. I'm going 3-5 on that, and then
of course
table in the playoffs. I mean, that's what I look for.
Yeah, you guys kind of like stole mine. So Rob touched on it. You guys touched on it. My first take on this whole thing was like, really, Orlando? Because when you look at what happened with the Sixers and their history in Orlando, man, like the Sixers are on a current 4-game losing streak in Orlando, and the last time they won there was in March 2018. Since the Magic was first established as a franchise in 1989, the Sixers are 14-45 in Orlando playing the Magic. So I just absolutely 14-45. Think about that. So
Shaq and Penny ain't walking through the door when they laid up, but
absolutely crazy stat. Crazy, just piling on the Sixers' inability to win on the road, right?
What you're telling me is there's a conspiracy theory in the NBA, and we're still being punished because people didn't like the process and all that, right? That's what's happening. That's why they sent us back to Orlando.
And we're not allowed to have first-round picks, right, Austin?
No.
Oh, are they going to blow that Oklahoma pick? Oklahoma State pick? I didn't even think about that.
The draft order will remain, that I believe, the same. So they do have to fight for the pick. But I will say this: the last time the Sixers won a championship was Orlando Summer League a couple of years ago. So I'm just saying the odds are for they have a very hot streak of winning playoffs in Orlando. They do. They won a championship in Orlando.
All right, so we know that the Sixers win every game at home. They can't win any game on the road. So does this count as a road game or a neutral site game?
Now this is where my taste gets spicy. This is where I'm all ready to go.
Mike is going to lead us off. That is like literally the top question, the top storyline of, we're talking about expectations for the Sixers moving forward. Mike absolutely nailed it. Go ahead, Austin.
Okay, so there we go. So it depends how you view the Sixers, right? So you have a team that was 29-2 at home, 10-24 on the road. Obviously, very, very about as much of a peak and trough as you can get there. It all depends on where you see them normalizing. Do you think that they're the type of team that is like on a normal world, are they closer to that 29-2 or to 10-24? The statistics on NBA.com would indicate that they're probably a little bit closer to that 29-2 than 10-24. That isn't to say that they're really a dominant team per se, but they're definitely not that 10-24 team. They're more along the lines of, you would think, a lower 50s win team. It's probably where they would project out with their stats. Team that has weaknesses but is overall pretty good. So that's kind of where I view them. Now, I think the whole home court advantage is a pretty superficial thing. In reality, the fans don't play games. They don't win games. They don't coach games. They make noise, and that makes it hard to hear if you're an away team. But it also is hard to hear for the home team as well. Fans are loud regardless. It isn't louder on one side of the court than the other. That's how it is. So the home court advantage really isn't a thing other than like travel time and the adjustment, living out of a hotel and whatnot. And even then, sometimes players will stay with like if they're friends with people in that area, they might stay with them, whatever. I don't believe that being on a neutral site in Orlando, where not only do they not have a home court advantage, but no one does, I don't think it hurts them nearly as much as people think it does. I think it actually helps them a lot. No travel, you're playing on the same court over and over again. I think when you have time to adjust to that environment, it can only benefit you. And so while a lot of teams are skilled in the NBA, when you don't have home court advantage and there's no travel, matchups, talent, and coaching are going to win out. And the Sixers on paper are supposed to be one of the most talented teams in the NBA and certainly have a matchup advantage amongst a lot of teams. So I like the neutral court for them.
Go ahead. 35.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say it about 35 takes in there. We could spend an hour just on that. I'm just going to jump in with one comment. I think the one thing that you might be discounting is the energy level. There's something about a home crowd. It's not the cheering. It's just something about the intensity and the energy of being at home that lifts a player up. And especially emotional players like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and players like that. But then you start to say to yourself, okay, now on the road, do they shrivel up from the crowd booing them? I don't know. I think Embiid feeds off of that. I think the one thing that I really agree with you is that the road thing is a statistical anomaly this year. I was at the Celtics game in Boston when the Sixers beat Boston. Al Horford's first game back in Boston when he couldn't play because he was hurt, but they ended up winning that game. If they play like that, they can win the championship. There's just something about the way they've been playing and the way that they were meshing. I think it's a lot more about that than it is home and road split.
All right, go ahead, Rob. Is the neutral site concept a positive or a negative for the Philadelphia 76ers?
Yeah, I've been back and forth on this, but I've kind of started to lean towards what Austin was saying. We understand how good they were at home, and yeah, I'm sure they feed off the crowd and all that. But this team, I think just they have the talent to be good. They have the talent to be really good. And because of that, I think a neutral site is going to help you because what was harming them more, and I know what Austin's saying that the crowd doesn't play the game, but we've got to say, like, everything from the coach on down was terrible on the road. So, I think that it being an empty gym, it'll be interesting. How do players like Joel Embiid play in an empty gym? How do players like guys on other teams play in an empty gym? It's different. But hopefully, I think this is where coaching comes in, and I know that means a lot of people in this town are going to be scared to death.
Yeah.
Personally, I think Brett is a leader of men. I know he may not be the right leader of men for here, but I do think he's a leader of men. I have confidence that he can get them ready for a situation like this.
Completely stole the words out of my mouth, Rob. This is you touched on it too. Like, these are very emotional, mentally unstable guys in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. And it boils down to, can Brett Brown get these guys to rally around him? Not just for Brett Brown's job, because that is very obvious that it's on the line. But I keep going back and forth. I'm not sure. I swivel all over the place in terms of, does it hurt them? Does it help them? Right now, it just boils down to Brett Brown. I can't decide. I honestly can't decide. And I honestly really kind of am leaning towards it's going to hurt them. Because when I think about the chemistry, the rhythm, and the just overall clusterfuck of the Sixers that has been over the last 6 to 8 months, 3 months off, what
6 to 8 years.
it felt like it. What shape is Joel Embiid going to be in? Where is Ben Simmons back? Brett Brown wants to play Joel Embiid 38 minutes per game. What does that mean? Can Al Horford play with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid? There are so many questions in the air that I think that you throw Ben and you throw Joel in an 8-game regular season where everything is on the line, it becomes a head game. And it's up to Brett Brown to kind of calm those guys down, and just figure it out with Al Horford and everything. And that's a steep hill, man. That's a huge hill, and I'm just definitely leaning towards it hurts them. So let's talk about the Al Horford situation, because that is kind of the biggest story right after Brett Brown. Rob, what's your take on the Al Horford situation? Where do you see that going?
Well, I was literally just going to say, we're going to know how much Brett Brown has searched within himself when that first starting lineup for that first game comes out.
Yeah.
And if he is going with, say, a Shake Milton in there and having Horford come off the bench, or is he going to go back to that lineup that they have been trying to make work and just hasn't seemed to work? I think that Al Horford can play a role, but I don't think it can be in that starting lineup with him, Ben, and Joel. That's too many guys that are not going to be – that are almost like they pass, they go to the basket, they try – well, Ben doesn't try and shoot, but the other two try and shoot, and it's just not going well. If you're going to play him, you got to put him in the best position. And right now, as crazy as it is, because all the money he's making, the best position's off the bench.
What about you, Mike? How do you see the Al Horford situation playing out going forward?
Yeah, just a quick comment on the Brett Brown thing, and then I'll go there. The one thing that I worry about with Brett Brown is I got the feeling, and where there's smoke, there's fire. Whether it's the Uran Weitzman book, whether it's the Jimmy Butler interviews, the JJ Redick comment, all those things. I think where there's smoke, there's fire. And I really believe that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons have tuned out Brett Brown, or at least they did before COVID-19 hit. Now, do they rally back around it? Can Brett pull it together? I don't think anybody knows the answer to that. And if he can, that's a whole different deal. The signs of encouragement for me for Horford, I am not as anti-Horford as a lot of people are, because I truly believe that this guy got hurt early in the year and came back too soon and was never right. And the one thing that, if you noticed, right before we went on this hiatus, he and Embiid were starting to play a little bit better together. They were running a little bit of a two-man game with Horford at the elbow. And I think he and Simmons had some nice actions together too. I mean, I remember at that Laker game that I went to in Philly when the Sixers dominated the Lakers and Embiid didn't play, Horford was tremendous. He's got it in him. I don't think he's washed. I think it's been a matter of circumstance and scheme. And I really feel like it was starting to come together. I'm very optimistic about it. I do believe he should start on the bench, because I think the Sixers have somebody in Shake Milton that, they really need to develop and let him out there and unleash him, because that adds a whole new dynamic and it sets up so many other things. And if you can bring Horford off the bench, he can back up Embiid and still play plenty of minutes. And, it really doesn't matter who starts the game. It matters who finishes it, right? And you want Horford down the stretch for some great defense. So I'm a lot higher on the Horford situation than a lot of people.
Yeah, you saw Al Horford, like right when he was getting, playing well, it was the All-Star break. Right when he was starting to play well, it was the coronavirus. Go ahead, Austin. Yep.
So, yes, in my ideal world, it would be Joel, Tobias at the 4. Tobias Harris, by the way, who I don't want to hear any slander for the rest of this season. He has been A+ all season long, and he's been A+ throughout this entire thing. He's been outstanding this whole week. So no more Tobias Harris slander. He misses a couple short jumpers.
He's a very good player. He's improved his defense. And is he perfect? No. But you know what? He's really, really good. And I think the Sixers are lucky to have him.
Absolutely. Now, so I let him play the 4. And, then I'd have Ben, like, playing, I guess you could call it, like, off ball, or I guess on ball. But it would be some combination of Milton, Josh, and Ben. So you'd have Embiid, Harris, Milton, Josh, Ben. And then at least you have the foundation of some sort of shooting around the point guard who we'll say won't shoot, and the center who should be on the block. But I think there's a world where you can start both of them together, but I think it has to come with not Shake Milton starting, but with Furkan Korkmaz starting. And here's why.
Wow.
So two of the team's highest rated lineups offensively all season, and also some of their most played lineups, are with Furkan Korkmaz and Al Horford on the court together. And they are blitzing opponents offensively with those two lineups. 121 offensive rating for one of them, and then the other one with a slight adjustment elsewhere be 118.5. But even though Korkmaz's defense is like a net negative most of the time, his shooting has been a welcomed and refreshing step up this season. And I think that he provides a lot of that spacing in the half court that you otherwise wouldn't have. And I think just by him being there, it sort of carves out an identity that Embiid and Simmons kind of know together, because he sits in that JJ Redick role. And even though he's not JJ Redick, it's a level of familiarity for them. I think it helps.
Wow. All right. That's a nugget right there. All right. I'm going to give you my take on Al Horford, then I'm going to touch on that because, all right. So Al Horford, man, like this guy is still a good player, guys, but like you look at the analytics and his name is in all the top 5 starting lineups in terms of plus net plus minus. And, if Brett Brown is planning to play Joel Embiid 38 minutes a game, where the hell does that leave Al Horford? And I go back to Brett Brown. At the end of the day, this falls on Brett. Brett needs to make this work, guys. And the 4 best players on the team have to carry this team to a title. That includes Al Horford. This is all on Brett, not for this season, but going beyond. All right, and then Shake Milton, man. I can't. Having Furkan start over Shake Milton, man, that's a crime, dude. In 10 games after the All-Star break, Milton's averaging 16.5 points per game, shooting 59% from 3, dude. So who is that guy?
Can create. Furkan can't create.
Like I said,
he's one of the few playmakers on the Sixers, dude. I know he doesn't provide much defense. Neither does Furkan, but Shake Milton, he's ready to take that center stage, man, become a household name in the NBA. He's one of the few playmakers the Sixers actually have, a guy that fits really well to Ben. I don't buy the defensive deficiencies. I think you put him more with Ben, it's going to hide those deficiencies. I'm all about Shake Milton, man. That guy needs to start. Go ahead, Austin. Any reaction to that?
I agree. I said, like I said, in an ideal world, it would be Joel, Tobias, Ben, Shake, and Josh. In an ideal world. This isn't an ideal world. You have misfitting pieces. And I think the way that you can counter that and still have this defensive monster that you think you've created in Horford and Embiid in the front court, the way that works is adding a spot up shooter who wasn't just a streak towards before this all happened, but has consistently been one of your better shooters all season long. So again, it might be that Shake Milton has burst onto the scene. Sure, absolutely, no one can deny that. I'm not about bursting onto the scene. I'm not about rewarding a guy because it's a good story. I'm about putting the best lineup together that maximizes the potential of the team and gets them past to get them to the next point. If that's Korkmaz, then great, let it be Korkmaz. If not, then I'm swallow my words. I'm wrong. Let it be Shake Milton. But I do believe that there's a level of familiarity from an X's and O's standpoint that having Korkmaz out there as a starter has with Joel and Ben. There's that DHO. There's that like one dribble game that Korkmaz has. Is he a creator? Mike's right. No, he's not a creator. But the best version of this team came in 2017-18 when they had JJ, Ilyasova, Covington, Šarić, and Bellinelli. Not creators, but they were spot up guys who Ben could penetrate defenses and find them open. So I do believe that there's a level of truth there, but I also think that you have to shake things up. No pun intended. You have to try new mixes and matches, and maybe it is shake, but the numbers do support Korkmaz.
The numbers support Korkmaz in a lot of ways, except for two things. Look at his 3-point percentage at home and away, and this will be considered not at home. And look at his record, his shooting percentage against teams above 500 versus below 500. They're pretty dramatic. He's not nearly as good against good teams. And the thing about Shake Milton is, he really is, if you ever want to use Simmons and Embiid together the right way, Shake Milton can make that happen because he can play pick and roll with Embiid, free Simmons up to kind of dive to the basket. And we started to see some of those actions where Simmons and Embiid were playing pick and roll, and Simmons was the diver because Shake was spreading the floor and creating. They didn't know what to do with it. So to me, I see Shake Milton. This is going to be blasphemy to a lot of Sixers fans, but I mean, he's got that Andrew Toney role. I'm pretty excited about what I've seen, and I think he adds a dimension that they've been waiting for. He gives them what Markelle Fultz was supposed to be.
Like 10 months ago, every Sixers fan on Twitter wanted Shake Milton off this squad after that summer league. Go ahead, Rob. What's your take?
Well, to me, listen, I mean, everybody's made great points. If it was me, Shake would be starting. Al Horford come off the bench. I think that's just the best lineup for this team. But Austin's right. They're going to be trying a lot of different things. And there's probably going to be a time where you have a Horford and an Embiid on the floor together. If it's to start the game, you do need somebody out there who could be a spot-up shooter with that lineup. But you guys are more in tune with the stats than me, but Furkan coming off the bench, if I remember correctly, was slightly better than Furkan a couple times. Way better, right? Better. When he started, it was almost like he had this pressure on him and everything just seemed tight. But then when he came off the bench, and it was just kind of like, hey, you're the role of the bomber. Like, Brett said in the beginning of the year, to just come off the bench, that was when he seemed to be at his best. So I don't know if I want to mess with that. He, as well as many of the other Sixers, seem like, they got things going on in that head cases. So it'll be interesting. But really, the question is this. What can we expect from this bench? Does the break help a Matisse Thybulle break through that, rookie wall? Does it help an Alec Burks and Greg Robinson? I don't know really at this point. You look at all those guys. The bench is going to be – Mike Scott. Does Mike Scott come back better than what he was, or is this just what he is now? So it's going to be really interesting to see from that standpoint as well.
I got another stat for you involving Mike Scott. We'll address that later.
All right, guys, let's get into the Sixers schedule. The good news, we're going to just break down the final 8 games of the regular season. The good news here is that the Hawks and the Knicks seasons have officially ended. So the Sixers will have 2 very high second-round picks in the 2020 NBA draft. Yippee, Austin. All right, but if you're also on the team of trade Al Horford, that's huge for getting as many assets as you can to unload that contract. But let's talk about this schedule. You have the Pacers. The Sixers are 1-2 versus the Pacers on the season.
You need to win that game. You need to win that game.
One win versus the Pacers was that Ben Simmons 3 steals in like 14 seconds game. Just an awesome performance. One of my favorite moments of the regular season. However, in 3 games, the Sixers have shot 27.1% from 3. So obviously that's a major area of need versus the Pacers. The Wizards, 1-1 versus the Wizards. The loss came in December when everything was starting to fall apart. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid had 15 total turnovers in that loss. Just absolutely horrendous. Sixers shoot really well versus Washington, but they also play 0 defense. Then we get to the Raptors. The Sixers were 1-2 on the season versus Toronto. Embiid played in 2 of those games. In their first matchup, that was the game when Embiid was held scoreless for the first time in his NBA career, 0 for 11 from the floor in 32 minutes. That was back in November. Then you got the Suns. The Sixers were 0-1 versus the Suns, and it was just a little fun fact. If you guys remember, the Sixers were the last unbeaten team in the NBA, and that was the team that beat them, the Suns.
5-0. Stayed up till 1 a.m. for that game.
Wow,
and
man.
I had work at 8:30. It was not a good morning.
Then you got the Blazers. The Blazers, or the Sixers were 1-0 versus the Blazers. That was the Furkan Korkmaz buzzer beater. Definitely the career shot from Furkan. Blazers were upward 21 points at one point in the third quarter. The Sixers came back. Al Horford had 25 and 7 in 30 minutes that game. Man, just fun to go back and just realize where we are now. And then
that was the last time we heard from him too.
Then you got the Rockets. The Sixers were 0-1 versus the Rockets. Ben Simmons was absolutely terrific in that game. It was a tough loss for them. Their fourth straight loss. It was tied for their season-long losing streak during the season. And then you got the Wizards. Then you got the Magic. We've already talked about that, how horrific the Sixers are in Orlando. And then overall, just 4 of 8 games, man, against current teams that are not in the playoffs. According to analytics guru Jacob Goldstein, the Sixers have the most favorable strength of schedule in that 8 remaining games. What were your thoughts on this remaining schedule, Rob? Go ahead, dude.
I mean, it's been so long since I have seen this team. This is how frustrated I am, because you're right. The schedule's favorable. So why in my head can't I see any better than 4-4, 3-5? I can't. You just have given me
That's the way of the Sixers fan, right there.
They've given me no confidence to sit here right now and say they're going to go 6 and in 3 months did they meet a magic genie and they're going to have all their wishes granted? And I don't know this. I got to see it on the floor. So I'm going to, what the hell, 4-4. Let's keep it simple.
Go ahead, Austin.
I think it's going to be 5-3, but I think it's going to be about as ugly a 5-3 as you could possibly get. We're talking, and keep in mind, a lot of teams that they play are going to be there solely just so that way they can get their asses kicked and then be done with it and get their lottery pick back that they want. So I think 5-3. 18 turnovers per game, both sides. They're shooting 39, 42% from the field. And I think at some point there'll be a Brett Brown incident with somebody on the team, a punching battle, if you will, with Jimmy Butler. He's going to bring him to the locker room. But I had 5-3, ugly 5-3, but I don't know. Nothing makes sense this year. So we'll go with
that. Go ahead, Mike.
I already said 3-5. I'll roll with it. But honestly, here's my take. Who cares? They're either going to play the Celtics or the Heat. And you know what? They match up well against the Celtics. If they play the Heat, they get to avoid the Bucks, at least for the, until the Eastern Conference Finals. And honestly, I don't care if they, and I don't care if they go 1-7, to be honest with you, if they figure out some chemistry and a way that they're going to play in the playoffs, and that Embiid gets himself in shape, and that, Simmons coming back from the back feels good, and Shake becomes Shake again, and the bench is able to establish some roles, and Horford feels good and feels like he's a part of it. If they can accomplish that, I don't care if they go 1-7. Hopefully, Brett Brown's always tinkering, and I'm going to be ready. They're going to be ready by Christmas. That didn't work out. We're going to be ready here. It's going to. He's for some reason is not able to figure it out in practice. He has to figure it out in the games. Use those games, get it right, and get a rotation for the playoffs and some confidence.
Yeah, it's Brett figuring out the rotations. It's Brett, trying to get these guys to rally around him. It's all about the starting lineup staying healthy. It's all about, Brett Brown figuring out what role Al Horford is best. There's 3 months. It's been 3 months for Brett Brown to figure this out. I'm on the side. I also don't care. I'm in that 3-5, 4-4 range. Just keep our guys healthy. Just keep our guys healthy, moving in momentum towards the playoffs. I don't care about seeds anymore. I've lost so much hair, obviously, right, Austin, about what seed the Sixers are going to be. But Here we are.
The one you had left.
I mean, get the chemistry, keep the first round Oklahoma pick, and use it as a preseason.
Yes. So just keep our
Listen, it's if they go 1-7, we'll just delete the entire thing. It's like 1-7. We will be back to insufferable depression once again.
But we'll
now
have fun.
it'll be like, hello darkness, my old friend. I did miss you.
I mean, you have to be a little bit miserable to be a Sixers fan, right? Like a little bit.
Oh, it's taken years off my life, no doubt about it. Now, I will say this: they've had 3 months off, right? 3 months off. That was their off season. They're starting basically 60 days after this current season comes to an end in October. So you already really had your off season. You're coming back healthy. This is now the time to get in playing shape and get reacclimated to the court. This is the time to tighten any screws before the real competition starts, because once the playoffs start, you can't afford to have any days where my stomach hurts. Oh, I'm not feeling it today. There's no time for that. You have to use these games to get ready to go. The only way to get into shape is to play basketball games. That's the only way. And while scrimmaging in practice is helpful, you need the live real-time pace of an NBA game. And the only way that they're going to be ready for these playoffs is if they take these games seriously. And they if you go 1-7 because but you tried, that's pretty sad, because that also means that you just aren't that good. But if they take this the right way, they play this 8 games the right way, you should be 5-3, 6-2. You might lose a game to the Rockets or whatever, but you need to come out hot. You need to beat the Pacers. You need to get that at least get that tied up that season series. So that way it comes down to you're tied for that 4th or 5 seed. It isn't like it goes to the Pacers anymore. I want to play the Celtics first round, but at what cost?
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I am like really intrigued to watch these games, right? Because we, as people watching at home on TV, the fans get us going a little bit. I know that I'm always trying to click the volume up a little bit and hear the fans. Is this going to seem like a glorified pickup game? Obviously, the talent would be exponentially better. But, I mean, really, they're not going to have anyone sitting in these seats outside of media members, I guess, and things like that. It's going to almost seem like a scouting combine meets summer league, and it's going to be really intriguing to watch. But I do agree with what Austin's saying. These 8 games, the most important thing is get yourself back acclimated to being in basketball game shape. Joel Embiid, this means you. Ben Simmons, please, to God, stay healthy. Just stay healthy. Because, first of all, nothing good could come from Ben Simmons, right? Because even in the best case scenario, the miracle, Shake Milton leads them to the title. Well, that gives us then an off season of just like Wentz and Foles. Trade Ben, we have Shake. That's the kind of shit you'll hear.
That was exactly where I was heading with that.
So I don't want that. So Ben, just stay healthy no matter
what.
what.
Jalen, though, you're good.
But Ben, stay healthy no matter what. And Brett, you're coaching for your job. You're coaching for my damn reputation, because I've stood behind you better than anyone. Probably your own family hasn't stood behind you like I have. So I need you to coach for your job like your life and mine depended on it. So then I could tell everybody else to go screw themselves for not listening to me.
And
Rob, your rap's already shot. There's no point in that anymore.
That's fair. Fair point.
Be prepared to be disappointed, Austin, because you have Joel Embiid getting back in shape and you have Ben Simmons coming off an injury. Just be prepared to see those minutes get slowly ramped up heading into the playoffs. Any last take on this, Mike?
Absolutely. You're forgetting the most important part. We've got hundreds of people descending on Orlando trying to avoid coronavirus. And we've got the Sixers that pick up a virus just from being like in the same state as a peanut. So Lord knows what's going to happen.
Good point. It's a perfect storm. It's a nightmare scenario for a Sixers medical staffer. You better believe they're going to have every kind of thing you got, every test you can think of, a litmus test, this test, that test. Everything.
Keep that staff in Philadelphia. Get that Orlando staff or Disney
World in there.
Staff.
I mean, are you guys prepared for the scenario where they go 8-0, look like the team we finally expected, and then 4 of them get corona and end the season?
About that, they'll just get swept in the first round, and we'll all be sitting here like, really? Like that. It's unbelievable.
All right, let's wrap this up, guys. Rob, tell us a little bit about the Madness podcast. We'll do our final wrap-ups.
Yeah, so the Madness, you can catch it right here on the Painted Lines YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. We are in process right now. Jess has been moving, much like Chris was last week. So hopefully we get an episode here in the next week and talking about all the good stuff that's happening in sports.
Awesome. Go ahead, Austin. Tell us a little about the feed to Embiid, man.
I'm editing an episode tonight. Brock and I discussed the return to play plans and how to fix this Sixers team, as we just discussed on this podcast as well. Be on the lookout for that. Also got some draft breakdowns, doing LaMelo Ball next.
Yeah.
Of course, they're not gonna get the pick because that's just how life is with this team. So it'll all have been for naught, but whatever.
And tell us a little bit about the Killing Me Smalls podcast, Mike.
Yeah, no doubt. So the thing that I'm most proud of is we've had some amazing guests. And 2 weeks ago, we had AJ Hawk, who won a Super Bowl with the Packers and won a national championship with Ohio State. Last week, we had Justin Grasso, who covers the Sixers from Sports Illustrated. Next week, we've got Ala Abdel-Nabi, that I'm really, really excited about because I worked at UNC doing Dean Smith's TV show while he was at Duke, and we're just going to battle. And I'm looking forward to that. And luckily, it'll be over the airwaves, so there won't be any fisticuffs. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, as well as the Painted Lines.
Fantastic. Make sure you follow my man Rob on Twitter. He is at Philly_Madness. That is the Austin Krell at Krell TPL. And Mike, of course, at Real Mike Small. For all of us, thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hand.